Thank you both for joining me today. My name is Melissa Minkow. I'm the Global Director of Retail Strategy for CI&T. We are digital technology specialists solving all of the highly technical issues that retailers experience when it comes to providing best-in-class consumer experiences while shopping. So joining me today, I have Jenna and Eileen, if you each want to introduce yourselves.
Sure, happy to. Hi, I'm Jenna Posner, CEO and founder of Chief Digital Agency. We're an agency that sits at the intersection of how technology is built and deployed by tech vendors and how that technology is built and deployed by retailers. Really excited to be here today and work with CI&T.
Thank you. I'm Eileen Rizzo, and I am the CEO of Zachys Wine International, which is a fine wine and spirits retailer.
Great. So we are going to unpack the most interesting parts of our connected retail survey that we ran at the end of January and early February. And basically, though this survey was conducted just a few months ago, a lot has already changed both in the economic landscape as well as the retailer landscape. And consumers are reacting to all of these changes on a minute by minute basis. So thought you two would be perfect to discuss that evolution and just what this data means for the future of retail. So, without further ado, we will just really quickly highlight the methodology and then get into the actual stats. So, we deployed the survey a couple months ago across 1,039 US consumers, and they were reflective of the US population, so pretty proportionate and representative of what we're seeing when it comes to shoppers in the US, but they do have to be digitally engaged. So they do have to be shopping online at least once a month, if not more, because we're exploring their digital behaviors and trying to understand how that plays out in the broader retail context. And the first section of questions that we asked them was about the economy and pricing. So we asked them things regarding dynamic pricing. We asked them where they see prices going in the future and if that will impact their spending habits and behaviors. And what was really interesting was basically what we saw was that consumers did anticipate that prices would go up on most goods. And I would guess now, and we will be asking this question in a couple weeks again, that more than 54% of consumers will say yes now, just given the T word and how much we have been talking about tariffs as a collective society at this point. What was especially interesting here, though, was that basically consumers told us they were going to control what they could control. So they felt that they would be spending more money on necessities, but about the same on all other types of goods. So even though they saw prices going up, they were going to try to pull back where they could pull back and anticipated just inevitably having to spend more on necessities. So I'm curious, Eileen, you sit in the beverage space, just kind of what your take is on this data and how you see consumers behaving already, knowing that prices are going up when it comes to alcoholic beverages. And then also, just for both of you, how we think consumers are going to react to deals, discounts in the future, spending in general.
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing already a significant drop off starting in March when tariffs were announced in terms of overall spend by consumers. So prices did start going up when tariffs started hitting. And as a result, what we do see is consumers are still spending, but they're spending less on the same wine, so or shifting down a price point. So maybe if they spent $50 a bottle, they're now spending $30 a bottle. We're also seeing a shift to some small degree of people drinking French and Italian wine to California as a result of just the perception that the tariffs coming from the overseas is not impacting California, even though it is, because the cost of bottles and corks and things are manufactured overseas, and therefore the costs are still going up slightly everywhere. Um,
That's
with the economy settling a bit in terms of people accepting tariffs and what they're at, we are starting to see some normalization in the buying patterns and people accepting, as they say here, those higher prices and really spending about the same. Cost is a little bit higher, but they're still spending.
Huh. So normalization now means not going back to previous patterns, but just accepting that, okay, prices are a little
Correct.
higher.
Yeah.
Got it. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, across my client base on the brand side, tariffs really gave everyone permission to increase prices, regardless of the impact the tariffs are really going to have on COGS. And so I think the result of that, to your earlier question, is going to be, a little bit more margin to play with, and that's going to come in the currency of promotions and discounts. And so I think it's going to be a little bit of a bloodbath this holiday season to see how aggressive and creative some of these brands are going to get in order to stand out. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, but I do think that promotions are going to continue to be heavily relied upon in order to drive throughput.
1000%. And that's why I know Amazon Prime Days is happening right now. And there's already been record number of sales, yesterday being the first day. And I thought it was interesting. It was looking like double the sales of Black Friday. And I find comparisons so fascinating because Black Friday is mostly you're buying for other people and you're not buying necessities. So I do think this just shows that consumers are very discount happy and discount ready when they see those good prices, especially when they're shopping for themselves and what they deem as necessities, which even if you're not buying necessities on Prime Day, and I think a lot of them are not necessities, it feels like you're checking something off your list. It feels like productivity spend when you spend on
Yeah.
Amazon. I'm just saying.
I think we've all tightened up a little bit too, right? So it's been months of kind of saving and waiting, and this was just a great opportunity for us to all let loose. And
But you also have to look at what is selling and what are people discounting, because if they're discounting inventory that hadn't moved in the prior 6 months and it's not really true tariffed goods, I think that's what you're seeing is the clearing of the inventory cycle and the discounts there. So
Totally. That's a great
yeah,
point.
good call.
Yeah. So with that, transitioning into a little bit more of our data, which just basically demonstrates how price sensitive consumers are and how price really plays a huge role in where they shop. I don't think we need to really discuss this anymore just because I think, Eileen, what you brought up in terms of selecting the wines is a perfect example. But it just shows you price is a huge motivator in terms of shopping decisions, both from a channel perspective and then also a retailer perspective. So something to keep in mind when it comes to retailer strategy is communicating that your prices are the best prices you can provide. If there's anything you guys want to add here, feel free. But yeah,
head on.
yeah, price really kind of just speaks for itself. I do think it's interesting. People are feeling like loyalty has eroded as a result and that consumers are less brand loyal. I don't know that I see the two as mutually exclusive. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Um, I just would tell you for me, when I look at this, I think the key driver outside of the pricing is the simplification and ease and convenience of shopping. And you kind of cover that in the next two bullets. So for me, I think prices, you know, I there's too many different angles going on with pricing in terms of different pricing by state now versus actual prices being the same on retail and by channel. But I do think the price comparison is happening within the retailer and or across retailers rather, not necessarily by channel.
For sure.
If I could shine my crystal ball a little bit, and think about what could possibly be going on here, you know, the the world is leaning into a more agentic shopping experience, right? And so when we think about that and we become loyal to our agents, right, versus loyal to our brands, we become loyal to the experience and to the convenience and to the ability to have our agents prioritize based on our needs, right? Not based on the needs of the retailer that's willing to pay the most to get in front of us. So I think there's going to be a future where brand loyalty is going to be very hard to maintain. You'll have those legacy, historic, staple brands, right? The Hermeses, the Chanels, the right of the world that are going to continue to maintain heritage brands that have, spent decades establishing themselves. But breaking into the market and building affinity and building brand awareness is going to be incredibly hard, harder and harder the more agentic that we get, in my opinion. Um, I'm going to communicate to my device and say, I need a red polo for my son's play next week. Right. And I'm not really going to care the brand of that. I need to get that item as soon as humanly possible for as cheap as humanly possible. And this agent is going to understand who I am, what I'm more likely to buy, the discount propensity that I'm more likely to buy at. And it's going to leverage all of these buying patterns and habits of me uniquely to determine how I go to market and how I discover new product. And so um, I think this is going to continue to be harder and harder as time goes on for brands to continue to maintain and build loyalty.
Yeah, being loyal to an agent is a really interesting point, and we're going to talk all things AI and agentic AI in a second. So that was that was almost a good segue. We're almost there. But I do think, it's really important. Eileen referenced this, that what is price? Price looks like a few things. It looks like convenience. It looks, to me, like mental energy and how intuitive a shopping experience is. So I always talk about how it's not super common for American consumers to buy their groceries online. And a huge reason for that is because it takes a lot of mental energy for us to walk the aisles digitally of a grocery store when we have this ingrained habit of going into a brick and mortar grocery store and knowing exactly where our items are. So when we look at the data on why a consumer might download a retailer app, you see the deals, the discounts, et cetera, but you very quickly also see the importance of making the overall shopping experience easier. And I think that's really about convenience and saving mental energy, and also how we'll end up talking about agents quite a bit. But yeah, are there any trade-offs here that either of you wanted to discuss without the agentic AI first, and then we'll very much get into that.
Yeah. I think there's a really good point here. Is that when consumers are downloading these native apps, and this will feed right into the agentic story as well, is that a customer is simply saying, "I want to be known," right?
Mhm.
Oh, I want to be known. I'm loyal. I want you to know me. I want you to know what I want. I want you to know what I'm willing to pay. I want you to curate this experience to me. Um, and so, I think it's a really good indicator that as we look forward into agentic, that there's a willingness and a wantingness to be known and to allow brands to leverage data to create these more bespoke experiences. And without that, the future agentic reality would be impossible, right? These agents are only as valuable as the data that they consume is.
Mhm. For sure. Yeah, those tailored experiences are extremely important and are what make the shopping experience easier overall. So that is kind of what convenience looks like. And yeah, we asked what are the most useful ways retailers can make sure that it is an easy shopping experience, and it's all about offering better prices, discounts, um, and offering that early access. So cool. So now let's get into AI. um,
Mm.
I know we're kind of beating around the bush here. So we asked in this year's survey a couple questions around AI and specifically generative AI. We asked consumers if they've observed retailers doing anything exciting with generative AI, and unsurprisingly, 80% told us no. And that's really just because they have no clue what generative AI is versus regular AI or agentic or whatever. But then we did ask them, and we kind of explained the different use cases for generative AI by showing them all of these options that you're seeing on the screen now. We had them select, if any, what they would like retailers to use generative AI to achieve. And they could also mutually exclusively select the option, I do not want retailers doing any of these things if it means they use generative AI to do so. Only 20% chose that. So 80% selected at least one use case that they would enjoy or appreciate retailers using generative AI for. And in stark contrast, last year when we asked consumers what their comfort level was with retailers using generative AI, it was exactly 50%, 50% split, where 50% told us they were not comfortable at all with retailers using AI in shopping experiences. So we know consumers are getting more comfortable. The most comfortable use case right now is solving customer service issues, but there was also significant resonance with writing more accurate product descriptions, creating more accurate product images, which Eileen in particular, we can definitely discuss that, I think.
Yeah.
I know that's something you've been working on. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot here. So I'm just going to open the floor and let each of you talk about what excites you most in this information.
Well, I was just going to comment. I think the reason people don't know if a retailer is using it is if you've used it and you've used it well, you shouldn't know necessarily. I mean, yes, when you get to Agentic, it's going to become more apparent, but where we're using it to create force efficiencies and more accuracy to improve the customer experience are in those top two bullets. And as you know, CI&T worked with us to implement a process to write more accurate product descriptions. And it saved significant time from a workload perspective across 3 different business units. So there's a lot to be gained from those things that, again, the customer wouldn't even need to know what we're doing because the product descriptions are accurate. They're more accurate than they had been in the past because of missing data and information that's been now solved for. So to me, it's those are the top prominent use cases that I think most people are using it, and customers are experiencing it and they don't even know it.
Yeah, and it makes for a way better experience because the customer is much closer to what they want faster.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if these results are actually like a positive or negative or neutral indicator, right? Like in theory, if they're telling us, hey, you guys should really be using generative to solve your customer service issues and write better product descriptions and create more accurate product images, does that assume that the actual performance of these generative experiences aren't good enough yet, right? Does that tell us that we actually do need to do better? Maybe. Um, I also think this is a little bit of a symptom of being so comfortable with ChatGPT, right? We have democratized the utilization of AI by creating and disseminating an interface that even my mom can use. And so when you think about people's expectation around their knowledge base when it comes to generative AI, what do they think about? They think about writing copy, right? And where do you write copy? It's in customer service interactions. It's in writing, better product descriptions. We've been able to create some imagery, and we're playing around with AI. So a little bit of this to me feels like um, not skewed, but supported by how the average consumer has actually adopted AI in their daily lives, in my opinion. But I think it's very interesting, and it's the stat that only 20% of these consumers said that they're not interested in any interactions that are driven with generative. I mean, that is such a huge indicator. And Melissa, do you have any perspective, like year over year, when you guys ran this survey last year? Is this an increase from last year, or decrease from last year? Is it the same?
Yeah, significant increase in comfort level. So it was 50% of consumers said they were not comfortable with retailers using AI to improve the shopping experience. And now you have 80% saying they're clearly comfortable with it in some capacity. So it's
Yeah, it's massive.
And I think to your point, the democratization of it is,
Yeah.
it can't be understated.
ChatGPT, yeah.
It's
Exactly.
also very experience related, right? It's all for them, right? It's you're solving my customer service issues. You're giving me better data, right? You're giving me more accurate images. You're creating marketing content that's relevant to me. It's about personalization. It's about leveraging generative, not just to do more faster, but to do more faster for me, which I think is it's interesting. It's cool.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, even the bottom example of writing training materials for store associates, that's still ultimately betters the experience for the shopper, right? Like then you have this expert helping you out. So,
Totally.
yeah, I think that's really important. And I also do want us to talk about Agentic in the sense that agents can basically create luxury experiences for us in a digital way. Like Jenna, the way you were talking about, I would want my agent to know me and help me make decisions. It feels like a luxury sales associate or a really, really well-trained store associate. So I'm curious, yeah, if you want to talk about that. And then Eileen, like what could that look like in the beverage space as well? I think there's so much opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I see a world where I'm authorizing my Gmail credentials, and I'm allowing my agent to scrub every order confirmation email I've ever received. I mean, I don't delete them. Do you delete them? No, no one deletes them. They're just sitting in my sitting in my inbox. Like there is a world where I want to be known by this agent. Um, I want this agent to understand what's in my closet already, how I can, complete whatever fits are sitting in my closet. I want to be able to tell it, aspirationally, what are the brands that inspire me, that I'm motivated by, and what are the spend thresholds that serve as boundaries for me as a consumer, so I can set this agent loose to go find what I want at the price point I want, right, at the discount rate that I want. Um, that does feel like a luxury. It's no different really than anybody walking down those grocery store aisles on my behalf, right? It's being able to tell someone that, hey, here's my plans for dinner for the next 4 nights. Um, Buy me some recipes and go buy the ingredients. It's no different than that, and I don't think we're far away from that. In fact, we're here. So, um, yeah, I mean, I think it's coming incredibly quickly. I think the questions that sit out front for me are, what does that mean for brand, right? What does that mean for brand loyalty? How are brands going to respond to this? How are they going to ready themselves for this? Like, what is the data infrastructure that is essential when thinking about how to be discovered and how to be known? It's the product catalog, it's inventory position. It's like, how many brands have that really accessible and able to be exposed to third parties and will trust an AI agent to represent those units out in market? Are these brand agents and consumer agents going to be like haggling, right? Are they going to be negotiating? Like, what does that look like? And then how is it all going to be monetized, right? Are these agents going to be financially incentivized for an affiliate capacity for pushing through orders or representing the customer? So it's all coming together. It's all moving very fast, but it's no surprise to me that you've moved from 50 to 80% adoption from a comfortability standpoint.
For sure. Eileen, in your space, where do you see Agentic playing a role? What are you kind of looking at in this way?
Yeah, I mean, from a very simplistic level, customers can go in and say, "I'm cooking the following for dinner this evening. Recommend a wine." And you can say that you're having fish or you're having beef, and it's going to recommend a red or a white. But to Jenna's point, when it's agentic and there's enough information shared, if they're doing it on Zachys' website, I know what wine they've bought. I know what wine we have in storage. I know general likes or dislikes, and I can go down to an exact brand, to an exact price point. I can say, you should have the Joseph Drouin Clos de Mouche, or we can get very specific to those recommendations about what you might want to pair with different meals and specific recipes. We can do conversely and say, well, I have this Irish Pinchin in my liquor cabinet, and I've never drank it because I don't know how to make a cocktail with it. And then we can serve up a whole host of unique cocktails. So there's a whole lot that can be done with it, because all of the data, the underlying data needed for these types of things really do exist out there. It can be synthesized so quickly, paired with information we have about a customer to come up with very unique, personalized recommendations. And it's there. Yeah.
And where is the line then between what generative AI can do and what the agent would do in that sense? Because you could type into a search engine and say,
Mm.
this is what I have in my fridge. What would you recommend as pairing versus the agent taking care of this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think with our customers, we know specific wines that are in their storage facility, or specific wines that they have pre-ordered. So maybe pairing more specific information, I think, is where the agentic comes in versus a generic. I'm cooking Thanksgiving this year. What should I have? Okay, well, Pinot Noir. Do you want a Pinot Noir from Burgundy? Do you want a Pinot Noir from Oregon? Right? We can get a little bit more granular, but then getting to the more specifics when you know more about that customer data. Kind of there's the internal data, external data, and how you're using that together.
Yeah. And Jenna, when you spoke about someone having their own agent, so in your vision of this future, do consumers have their own agent? It's one agent for everything, and then brands like Zachys rolled out an agent too. Like, where are the agents? How does it?
It's a really good question, and
That's why they're all in the boxing ring.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think what we're seeing really is an evolution, and it's happening very quickly. But they're first we have to train consumers on how to interact, right?
Mhm.
And it's really prompting is kind of the first piece. It's like, how do you train a consumer to actually interact with and communicate and talk to, speak with, have a back and forth um, with a digital experience, right? And so we saw this kind of take shape through generative chatbots, through customer service inquiries, and we've now seen this infiltrate into conversational search, where just like if you walked into a physical store, you can start a conversation with the search bar that's allowing you to provide context that can help inform the results. I mean, typically when you go to a search bar, you're typing in, I'm looking for a black button down. They have no idea why. They have no idea what for. They don't know if it's formal. They don't know if it's leisure. No idea, right? There's no context, right? And so you're forced as this consumer to kind of filter through and weed through 400 black button down results, right? And it's just messy. It's just not, we put the onus on the consumer to do all of this. And so we're seeing this shift take place now with conversational search, and it's really allowing the consumer to have confidence around the language that they can use in order to prompt the website to give it better results. So that's interesting, right? And so I ask myself, like, when is a customer just going to show up to a website and there's just a prompt?
Yeah.
Right? When do we want to start the conversation from the time they open that digital door? Like, what does that really look like? And as they start becoming more comfortable with communicating in that way, does the brand supply an agent on behalf of the consumer? Maybe. Maybe that's the next step. But if we fast forward to the end, there's going to be some sort of mass adoption event. There is going to be a technology partner. It's an Amazon, it's a Google, it's a Perplexity, it's an OpenAI. It's one or all of these that are going to create this world where we can have a agent that is built expressly for us, representative of our behavior and our needs and wants and interests and propensity, that I believe is going to be operating on our behalf. I mean, it's like cell phone carriers, right? We all have phones. We all have different carriers, but there's only like 4 or 5. I don't see it as being any different than that. But I do think that each of them are going to have, different levels of efficacy and cost structures, and but we'll see. I mean, it's all happening right now. It's all unfolding as we speak.
Yeah.
Can't wait till we get to the trust questions.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. So honestly, I mean, we can switch. Let's move to the trust ones first, because I think that this is a really important topic. So
Yeah.
we did a whole section, I mean, a ton of questions on consumers' perceptions of website shopping versus app shopping versus brick and mortar. And when we asked specifically about the frustrations and how they varied across channels, what rose to the top over and over again from a digital perspective was potential security concerns. So I am really trying to understand, knowing that consumers are so worried about data security and knowing that that is the foundation for all AI implementations, and also knowing that several retailers have been experiencing security breaches lately. What level of confidence are consumers going to have in these experiences? What amount of data will they be okay sharing with retailers as a result? Why are they willing to sacrifice it in some instances and others not? Yeah, Eileen, you were excited for this. So what are your initial thoughts
Well,
on
I
this?
just as I listen to Jenna, I think there could be a lot of that which could come to fruition until the point in which those agents are hacked and or fed information that then starts to lead me down a path that's has now broken my trust, and then which case the what transforms or unfolds from that point of how they're trusted or believed in or utilized. You know, just like you're showing here with potential security concerns and the breaches is, people start to say, I'm no longer going to shop with that retailer because they're not secure, or I am not going to share my information with anybody because nobody's secure. You've got all spectrums of the response that could happen here.
Gonna go grab those stacks of cash in the mattress. I mean, listen, I am I don't think this is any different than storing my credentials in Google Pay, right? Or storing my credentials in Apple Pay. Or, you have to believe that the technology providers that are behind these experiences are going to be as accountable and as capable and are running on the rails that we currently have built today. It doesn't mean that it's perfect. And obviously, there's always going to be bad actors. We're always going to be a little at risk. But in my opinion, the benefits outweigh the risk. Um, so I'm less concerned. Um, and we'll trust the Amazons, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Perplexities, the Open AIs of the world to navigate these waters and make sure that they're able to maintain secure environments for our consumers to engage, interact, and transact.
This is going to be an interesting thing to track, Melissa, of the percent of people getting comfortable with Gen AI and the use of it, and then the trust. As people get more comfortable, does the trust get more comfortable, or does the concern go higher? It'll be interesting.
Yeah, to see if there's some correlations and how those two data points are related. We will be asking a lot of trust-based questions in the next survey that we're going to be fielding in just a few weeks, and specifically asking things like, what do you do once you hear a retailer has a security breach? Do you stop shopping them? Do you just think about shopping them less? What ends up happening to your behavior? Because I think, first of all, it's easy for the three of us to say, we don't really care. We trust retailers because we know the behind the scenes and we know how secure a lot of this is. And the consequence for the consumer oftentimes isn't that great, and I also think consumers tend to be extremely lazy when it comes to we don't change our passwords. We use the same password
Absolutely.
for everything. We put them in our notes app. We're not supposed to do that. What do consumers care about versus what do they actually do to help themselves in these types of situations? Not a whole lot. So I think it'll be interesting to see. My hypothesis is the more explicit retailers get in asking for consumer information, that's the more nervous consumers will get. When retailers just collect this information without really saying anything, which is mostly what's happening right now, consumers don't know to care, and they don't really know what's being captured. But I do think with Agentic, retailers are going to have to ask a lot more questions, which will inherently make consumers more concerned, which I think is exactly what you were getting at, Eileen, of when the comfort level goes up and the familiarity goes up, does it also make them more aware of how much data they're surrendering at the same time?
Or data they're leveraging in order to create these really incredible experiences, right? I mean, I do think that there's going to be a proxy for the consumer. I don't think this is going to be always, or I can't say ever, but always interactions between, Melissa, to the brand's agent. I think it's going to be agent to agent. And what I want to do is I want to trust that my agent is going to have all of my context and all of my data and all of my information and be able to share that as signals, not data sharing, but signals to the other agent to help that agent understand my potential LTV. Right? What do I look like to the brand agent? It doesn't have to share the data, but it can say, Jenna's amazing. You need to have her as a customer. Invest in her now because her LTV is going to be 10x the average. Right? So like it's it's um it's being comfortable. I think we're going to be breeding a generation of consumers that want to be known, and we're going to have to find a path to expose who we are and really inform these agents so that they can be as effective as possible.
Yeah. The signals is an interesting point. I haven't really heard anyone bring that very important nuance up, and that will require a lot of education to the consumer to say they're not actually swapping data, they're swapping signals. That's gonna be a whole other vernacular that we'll have to get comfortable with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good deal. Yeah, so I mean, again, you can just see here when we asked about shopping frustrations in the context of an app. Security concerns, once again, were the issue. And when we asked and kind of dove deeper into why consumers don't like certain retailer apps, this trust issue once again surfaced, which was they end up being different than how they're marketed. It's glitchy or it's inefficient. You have to pay to download or it requires phone space. But the one that really stood out to me most was that they end up being something that consumers are disappointed by. I think there's just a huge opportunity for retailers to design apps that are much more resonant. And we know from our data that consumers say apps are the easiest channel experience in general, but they don't really download retailer apps because they're either disappointed or it's precious real estate. So that's another kind of onboarding moment when it comes to agents. What is this going to look like in the context of app usage from retailers?
Well, my prediction here is that if you're going to find a home for a brand agent, it's going to live in a native mobile app. So that's my guess, right? That's my best guess. I think it's a beautiful container for it. It's a great reason to download an app. It's a great place to share your customer data in a secure, closed environment. It feels like, as we're talking about that progression of, search to conversational search, Gen AI, customer service, chatbots, et cetera. Like this feels like a natural progression where it will be a nice sandbox for brands to test out before unleashing it on the universe. Is this a closed environment where we can kind of test this brand agent use case? So I feel like there's going to be a little bit more of a resurgence in the native mobile app utilization and priority, simply because it seems like a great canvas for testing and learning from an agentic standpoint.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's an interesting point that it's the best channel for agentic, and maybe it will force retailers and brands to develop apps because there's a lot of hesitancy around that, knowing that so few consumers want to engage with another app.
Mm.
But Eileen, what would that look like for you guys then? Is an app something that would be of interest to a beverage retailer? I'm always curious about that.
Yeah, I definitely think it's out there. The liquor space is much more challenging because of the three-tier system, so we have other hurdles to overcome, but, in a perfect even world where we didn't have those challenges, I think this is something that could absolutely, really kinda cross barriers that exist today.
And three-tier system for people listening that aren't as familiar.
Sorry, three-tier system is, as an alcohol producer, you cannot sell directly to a consumer, so there has to be the producer, the distributor, and then the end retailer. So three tiers before it gets to the consumer.
Got it. So that's interesting as well in categories where items are much more heavily regulated.
Yeah,
There's some in the health space, financial services, various parts of retail, and obviously the beverage space. So that's really interesting as well.
yeah. So
So, so kind of question slash kind of statement, as we kind of look at the progression of all of this and where this is all headed. If we're going down this agentic path and we have these agents communicating and serving as proxies for the brand and the consumer, how relevant does the website really become? Right? Like, how relevant is the browser? How relevant is the search engine? Right? What is that? What does this new kind of digital world look like? And I think as it relates to these apps, you know, these agents are in, again, this is all me pontificating and guessing here, but my bet is on the device. My bet is that I'm gonna be talking to my phone, right? We all have them. They all have agents on them already, Siri, and I mean, they're there, right? They're already there. And they're going to be mobilized, like, it's going to happen. And so my thought is that if we're discovering product in new or different places, and the website is becoming less and less essential, and the device more and more of a conduit for our shopping experiences, having an app on that phone is going to be super essential, because it's that app that's either going to drive a product catalog experience and support discovery in the device experience, or it's going to serve as a resource to learn more about the consumer and train that agent. Or it's going to really it's going to provide more data on location and more context so that, as the site goes away and as cookies go away and tracking goes away and those interactions become less indicators to support our ad spends and our acquisition strategies and our, how we're determining how we're going to disseminate all of our content, that device is going to be the linchpin. And so we need to be there. And if we're counting on a browser on device, as it's just not, I don't see it in our future. So I think native app is gonna have another moment.
Eileen, is that what you think?
There's a part of her argument that I hear that is sort of the same argument for all the people that said stores would go away when e-com came up, and so I
I didn't say that, by the way.
I didn't. You didn't, and I'm not on here to play devil's advocate, but I mean, I think you could argue both sides, right? Which is that it wouldn't go completely to the angle that people are still going to want to have to browse and look and have that sensation, whether it's in a store or it's online. I think there are certainly things like Jenna's saying that will absolutely exist for maybe 30 to 40% of purchases, which is, I need a new collar for my dog. I need the polo for my son who's in a play and I need it next week, to simplify those types of very transactional, it's exactly this versus, okay, I'm moving into a new home and I want to look at different furniture options and go across different retailers. I'm not going to use my phone to have it tell me or recommend to me. So I think there are specific use cases that Jenna speaks to that are absolutely well served. And I think there are others that you could argue are just never going to go fully to where she's going. She's arguing. So
Question for you. Let's do this. Do you still get catalogs in the mail?
if I do, I don't look at them. I throw them away. But yeah, I think I probably get one or two.
Right. So that's it. This isn't about channel. I still think we'll absolutely have a store channel, a physical channel. I think we'll absolutely have a digital channel. I'm just suggesting that product discovery and interaction with content is going to move away from this digital catalog, which is essentially what a website is, and morph into something new. And I think we'll be less reliant on kind of like the static hierarchy of a website. I mean, think about it, Eileen. Like you have a website today, and it's got this like header nav. And
Yeah.
this header nav is like, we'll go apparel and footwear because that's what I know. But it's new. It's like it's new arrivals. It's men's. It's women's. It's kids. It's sale, right? And the reason we have that header nav is because I have no idea who you are, right? Like
Yeah.
2% of consumers convert, and 98% of them are unknown, and I have no idea who you are. So I need you to show me that you're a woman and that you're interested in accessories and you want a bag, and like then I watch you put it into your cart and I pray that you check out, right? It's like it's the future. Imagine a future where I just say, "Hey, Siri,
Yeah, no, I don't
right?
disagree with you.
I
Yeah.
want a bag, right? Show me
Yeah.
some bags."
Yeah.
I still think you're gonna have a digital interface where you engage with these products and you can say, "Hey, I just moved into a new house and I have a den and I need some ideas for furniture. You know all the furniture I bought. Find me some things that match my current set."
Yeah.
So like I think that the reliance on that kind of traditional hierarchy, I think the way that consumers look to websites, I think it's just there's going to be a big intermediary step in the middle there that likely will lead to conversion before they feel like they need to go direct to the source, in my opinion. I just battling with you. Really, it's fun.
Point
But like
taken.
I haven't received a physical catalog in the mail in like I don't even know, maybe like 15 years, right? So
Well, then you're not shopping with L Bean or Pottery Barn or Restoration Hardware.
I do. I don't get I don't get the catalog.
That's an interesting comparison because I agree with Eileen, and I've been likening the comparison of saying that websites are going away to brick and mortar going away, when digital. But I think the catalog is probably a better example. I do wonder if there will be some backlash, though, where consumers will say, I want to feel in control of my shopping journey again because I feel like too many decisions are being made without me. Yeah, being made without me.
Champagne problems, champagne problems.
Yeah, literally.
But I already have that champagne for you.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I love it.
I do think there's going to be a balance that ends up happening.
Yeah.
right?
You and I are in the same boat, Melissa.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's reschedule the same webinar for 5 years from today, and we'll see where we landed.
Perfect.
Guys, we'll be like off the planet in 5 years, Eileen. I don't even know where we'll be.
Oh, man.
Agents will have taken over the world. We will no longer exist, Melissa.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been a really fun and super interesting conversation. I'm excited for people to hear it.
Bye.
Awesome. All right. Bye, guys.